Hello and welcome to the Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friend. If you've been looking for a podcast geared towards your growth, self-awareness, navigating your brain's daily mind drama, and deep inner work to become your highest and best self, you are in the perfect place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so excited to have you. My name is Macy Renee, and I'm a self-mastery life coach. And if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back and joining me on this episode. I hope that you all have had an amazing weekend and that you're ready to tackle this week. So today we're going to talk about our thoughts and feelings. We're going to talk in terms of how this works in a linear fashion and a lot of the external things that we tend to look at that we need to redirect to our line of thinking. And I'm going to go into all of the reasons why. So if you've been following me for a while, if you've been following this podcast for a while, you know that I talk a lot about how our thoughts are powerful, how our brain always wants to keep us in a state of comfort, how our ego comes in to make sure that we feel right, and how our brain is geared to look for reassurance that our beliefs are valid. And sometimes that can be very useful in our life, and sometimes that could be a pickle in our life. And a lot of times it's what keeps us from really living the life that we desire. Because if our beliefs are limited, so limiting beliefs, we're not going to be able to create the life that we want because we have things blocking us. And a lot of those things are the external circumstances that I'm going to show you guys in this podcast. So when I first started this podcast, we broke this down. This is a model used and created by Brooke Castillo with the Life Coach School. And if you were to see it written out, it's CTFAR. And what that stands for is circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, and results. And this is much easier to teach to you whenever I have my whiteboard and whenever you're actually in a program where you can see me, but I'm going to do my best to pull this all together on this particular episode because I have broken down what each of these mean very early on in the podcast. But the importance of this is to know that your circumstances, all of us have them. All of us have circumstances. Every little occurrence that happens in our life is a circumstance. And the most important thing to note about this is that it's neutral, meaning that a circumstance doesn't have any meaning until we attach meaning to it. So to give you a few silly examples, it could be, dog barking all night. That's a circumstance. Tire pops on road, right? Like these are things that happen in our life, lock keys in car. And all of it is neutral, meaning that the same circumstance can happen to thousands of people, and every single person's reaction could be completely different because it's not the circumstance that dictates everything else. It's our thought that dictates what's going to happen next. So if you were looking at the CTFAR model and you go down a notch, when I'm working on this with clients, we list out the circumstance with no emotion attached, and then we go into what's next. So after a circumstance, you're typically going to have a thought about it. If your tire pops on the road, you're going to have a thought about it. If a dog is barking at an apartment complex all night, you're going to have thoughts about it. Now, here's the key thing. Your thoughts lead to your feelings. And we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, but it's very important to understand that your thoughts are what create the feelings that you're feeling. If you feel angry, if you feel sad, if you feel excited, happy, nervous, anxious, worrisome, thrilled, whatever it is in your body that you're feeling is a result of what you're thinking about the circumstance, which is neutral. Make sense? So after you feel the feeling, whatever you're feeling, that's going to determine what action you take or what action you don't take. Okay, and based on what action you take or do not take, that's going to give you the result that you're getting in life. So let's just do this really quick as an example. If the circumstance is dog is barking all night at apartment complex, that's neutral. And I'll give you two different scenarios of this. So let's say that that's the case. Dog barking at apartment all night. Now, if you're the owner of the dog, your thought may be he's being protective. And if your thought is he's being protective or he's alerting us, then the feeling you may feel in your body could be safe. And if you're feeling safe, your action may be to fall asleep more easily, or your action may be to be alert and check the windows, right? Based on whatever you think you should do based on feeling safe and thinking the thought he's protective of us, or he's, very alert and alarming us of something. And the result of that would be, ultimately feeling safe and knowing you're protected and you feel safe because of your dog. Okay, that's one scenario. There's a million ways that this can go. But let's say that you're not the owner of the dog that is barking all night at the apartment complex. You might have the thought, that dog is so annoying. I've experienced this when I lived in a townhome with my husband. We used to have a dog nearby that would just bark so loud all day. And he wasn't my dog, and I was not thrilled with it. So my thought about that dog was, that is so annoying. He would usually bark all day while his owner was gone at work. And the feeling that I had was agitation. It totally made me agitated when I was thinking the thought, the dog is so annoying. That would lead to the feeling of being agitated. The action that you take or didn't take, like for me, was I basically just moaned and groaned and complained to my husband about it. I didn't ever go tell her, hey, your dog barks all day long. I didn't go complain to the leasing office. I could have done those things. That could have been my action, but I didn't. I complained to my husband. And then the result of that was just feeling annoyed and talking to my husband about how obnoxious it was, but nothing really changed. The dog continued to bark. So all of this to say, what is the main focus of today's topic is that a lot of times we blame our circumstances for how we're feeling and the results that we're getting. And what is very important for you to know is it's not the circumstance that's creating the results. It's your thought about the circumstance that's creating the results. Your thought is always going to be what's creating the result in your life. If you're struggling with money, that's a result of what you're thinking about money. If you feel like you never have enough time, that is a result of your thoughts about having enough time. You feel like it's a circumstance, but it's really the thoughts that you're having about it that create the feeling that make you take action or don't, and that's what gives you the results. So all of this to say is that the reason that we do this work in life coaching is because when we are focused on external things, we do not feel that we have the control or power to change it. And we become very frustrated and we feel out of control, and we think that we have no ability to reverse the situation or to make the situation better. And then we start to self-sabotage, and that's when we start to have subconscious mind drama and limiting beliefs. And we don't get as far as we could if we took responsibility and turned inward only to understand our own thought process. So whenever you have a circumstance in your life and you feel annoyed, frustrated, sad, angry, disappointed, furious, what's really important is to pinpoint the thought or thoughts that you're having in that moment. You may think the reason you're feeling that way is because your tire popped on the highway. okay? But what you're really feeling, like the reason that you're really feeling those emotions, whatever you're feeling, if your tire popped on the side of the highway, you can kind of put yourself in this scenario, is the result of the thoughts you're thinking. You may have thought something like, the tire guy didn't put my tire on right. He put my family at risk. The guy that doesn't clean up the road after people, like semi-tractor trailers, lose tires is at fault. Or you could be thinking, thank God we're all safe. Or thank God my kids weren't with me. That could have ended terribly. Or, oh my gosh, I had a guardian angel. Like I could have been severely hurt. Or thank goodness, nobody was behind me. Or if that car hadn't swerved, this could be different. Like you would have a ton of thoughts. And what you think is that your tire popping is what caused all of that to happen, but it's not the tire popping that caused all of your feelings and emotions. It was your thought about it, because somebody else could have the exact same thing happen to them and feel completely different about the situation. This is why sometimes in social scenarios, somebody might say something. Let's say like 10 people are sitting around the table. Somebody says something and 2 people get so offended, and 2 other people at the table feel indifferent to it. And then a few others at the table are like, I don't really see the problem. Okay? And it's because whatever that person said at the table is neutral. It's your thoughts about what they said, whatever belief systems you already have in place, whatever you're thinking about what they said, that will create the feeling that you're feeling. So if you feel disgust, it's because you're thinking something that is creating the feeling of disgust. I hope this is making sense. And again, the reason that I want to bring this up is because what we tend to do as humans is look to every external thing as being the reason why something's not working, why we don't feel happy, why we're frustrated. And we have a really hard time taking responsibility for our own line of thinking. And I think a lot of it is that we don't always understand that it is our thinking that creates the results that we're getting. So that if we want a different result and we don't want to feel that way and we don't want to think that way, we have to be very cognizant of, okay, it's my thoughts that's creating the way that I'm feeling. And it's my thoughts that are creating the result that I'm getting. And if I want something different or I want to feel something different, I have to think differently. And I'm going to have to turn in and take radical responsibility for what I'm thinking in order to change it. And you can apply this to many different scenarios, and especially if you're in business and you're thinking, I don't know how to, do a website. I don't know how to get people to join my relationship marketing business. I don't know how to build relationships. I don't know, how to increase my practice, or whatever it is. When you're having those thoughts, that's usually going to create negative emotion. And what do you typically do is action when you feel negative. You don't take action at all. You give up on yourself. You quit. You feel down on yourself. And then the result is that you don't grow the way that you want to grow. And a lot of times you think, well, it's because not enough people are on my network, or it's because nobody wants to pay my prices, or it's because blah, 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 blah. And none of those things are the reason. The reason is your thoughts. And that can be a very hard pill to swallow and tricky to work through sometimes. That's why even as a coach, it's important to have a coach, and why I have a coach. Because when my mind begins to limit me as to what is possible, and when my mind starts to tell me, you can't create anything that you want, you don't have evidence for it. Because remember, the brain loves to look for past evidence to see if it's possible. And the thing about it is you have to become the person that believes it's possible before you see the result. So like even with Steve Jobs creating Apple products, he had to have a vision for it before it even existed, because he was the creator of it. And I'm sure there were several people who thought that what we have now was absolutely impossible. But he had a vision for it, And it's his thoughts that helped create the result of what we experience and use every day. So if he would have had thoughts like it's never going to work, or this is impossible, or there's no way, you can talk to someone like face to face on a phone, or there's no way you can have, an alarm on your phone. I'm trying to think of what Apple did that was, significant. I mean, really, so much of it is so revolutionary. But if he would have had thoughts like that's impossible, that's never going to work, those would have been limiting beliefs. And there's probably a ton of other creators in the phone industry that had those thoughts. And did they create what Apple was able to create? No. Maybe after he did it first, because their brain then saw it was possible. But the point is that in saying this, you can create anything, even if it looks impossible to other people. But your mindset has to be in check. And that means you can't blame external circumstances for the results you're getting. You have to go back and turn inward and look at your mind. That's what's important. So this was a short episode, but I hope that it drills it home. And I hope that it was helpful for you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram with the username handle, I guess you could say, at Macy Renee _, and it'll be in the show notes. And also you can find me on Facebook, Macy Renee. And if you're a listener of the podcast and you've never connected with me on social media, please do so. I love that. I love when people introduce themselves and say hello. I listen to your podcast, blah, 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 whatever you have to say. I love that. I love just meeting you and making connections, because it's just so cool to see like who's listening and what part of the world are you in and how did you find me? Like that's always so interesting, because I never know how you did. How did you find me? I have no idea. Okay, and last thing that I wanted to tell you guys, because it won't be too late for you when this launches, it'll be the 31st. Up until midnight on the 1st of September, if you want access to my free 15-day series that I did from August 1st through the 15th, go to macyrenee.com, click on Ways to Work Together, and then go to the Becoming Her tab. And if you scroll all the way down after clicking that tab, it'll say Go to Digital Portfolio. It will take you to all 15 days worth of content. And I know that you don't have a lot of time to view it before I make it private, because that's for my Becoming Her community. But you will have about 2 days if you listen to this fairly early to binge anything that you want to binge. And if you want access to it after, I encourage you, if you're a woman, to take a peek at the Becoming Her community. It is an amazing opportunity to be supported by other women, get one-on-one coaching calls with me twice a month, get live coaching in the Facebook group every single week. It's just an amazing community that I am building for self-mastery. My goal is to have thousands of women in there one day that are all focused on becoming their highest self and self-mastery. So if you have any questions about that, please be sure to reach out to me. I adore you all, and I will see you next Monday. Have a great week. Hey girl, did you know there's a place for you to continue this work outside of the podcast? Well, there is, and it's called Becoming Her. This is my online and ongoing coaching container for self-mastery. Everything takes place online and is the best value for your investment if you're wanting to work with me. This is for women that want to create lasting change by learning how to master themselves, their energy, their mindset, and how to do the deep inner work. It's a growing community where you're supported for life with live online trainings, access to all previously recorded content, and 2 one-on-one coaching calls with me per month. It's an investment where you can rest assured you'll have everything you need at your fingertips, and where there's one primary goal: becoming your highest self. If this has been something you're looking for, join us and be a part of the growth. You can find out more information on macyrenee.com.